Hi all. As promised, here is a brief overview of the Milestone 1 guidelines and rubric and just a general overview of what your final project here in IT 210 is all about and the value in it. If this is your first final project at SNU, then you may not be accustomed to how it's laid out, but in every course that you have, you're going to have a final project that makes up the majority of your grade, and it's broken into a number of milestones throughout the course time so that you don't get caught up in the last week completing an entire final project. I was a grad student here at SNU when I got my second master's degree, and I can tell you from personal experience that doing these milestones, completing these milestones along the way is just such a huge relief when you get to completing your final project because you will have had feedback by then, and you just don't have nearly as much work to do as you would if you didn't have these milestones. In addition, the projects themselves are geared toward placing you in a real world scenario, kind of like a case study, and in some cases they are case studies. And they're just incredibly valuable for comprehension, for applying the concepts that you're learning here in the class to a real life scenario. I can tell you also from personal experience, I've used some of these projects, tweaked them, and use them in personal portfolios. And I've actually been hired based off of some of the projects that I did here at SNU. So hopefully you will learn by doing and you will ask questions along the way and make personal connections as you've been doing a good job of doing. And yeah, you'll find that they are extremely valuable in really cementing your knowledge here. So let's just go over the Milestone 1 guidelines and rubric. That way, if you have any specific questions, you can leave them for us in the general questions forum or reach out to me by email or phone. But I just want to make sure that we're hitting all of the important points because as I go along and grade your milestones and provide you with feedback, it's going to be based on this rubric. Um, so this first milestone is kind of like the high level overview, and then we're going to start drilling down into the specifics. Basically, what you want to do is you want to start by looking at the overview here and the prompt. So the prompt is telling you to imagine that you work for the small brick and mortar business described in the final project case scenario. And we'll get back to that in a moment. The owner of your business wants to focus on generating new revenue through e-commerce, but she knows that this change in operations requires the company to integrate new technology. Now, recall from your readings in Module 1 and Module 2 that e-commerce is online sales like Amazon and things like that. And then brick and mortar is would be a small business, brick and mortar, just like it says, like a building, like just like it sounds. So, to gain an understanding of what the business might need for technology, she's asked you to create a business systems analysis. Now, this is something that a business analyst does in everyday work. As a part of my job is business analysis, and what we do is we go through our clients, and sometimes they're internal clients in the company, and sometimes they're external. We find out what their need is, and then we draft out requirements so that we can develop to very specific requirements. So that's the role that you're playing in this situation is you know that your client wants technology, but you need to analyze how she's going to be able to implement this technology and what her best options for it is. So in this analysis, you will clearly introduce the problem that your business is facing because you also have to make you have to support the argument for it. Is the technology worth it? Then you will determine the business requirements for solving that problem, including the requirements that any new technology needs to meet. Okay, so what we need to do from here is we need to pay attention to where it says final project case scenario. This is your main case study scenario that you are working off of for this entire milestone. You may have to return to it multiple times, and that's great. That's fine. You should continue returning to it to make sure that you really understand the scenario that you are participating in. So if you click on this link, it's going to bring you here to this document, and it gives you a really much more detailed explanation of what your case study is all about. So it tells you that you're working in a brick and mortar business specializing in designer clothing, shoes, and handbags. So your business offers discounted designer clothing and it just continues on. It gives you very specific links here to e-business competitors, which are going to be important because you're going to be picking a couple of these to analyze. And then it tells you the ultimate goals of the business. Again, very important because it's something you're going to have to describe in your paper, and that the business owner is looking for a technology solution, and gives you the what we call the business requirements. The requirements of her technology are she needs it to integrate online shopping, manage inventory and shipping, provide order status, online payment processing, and so on. So make sure you really read through this and return back to it as you complete your milestone. Okay, so your final goal, and you do want to keep your final goal in mind as you write through this project, because same as when you went through your early English courses and you discussed I'm always coming back to a thesis, coming back to a thesis statement, to a thesis prompt. You want to always be coming back to your goal. And your final project goal is to establish an e-commerce presence and improve the current technology first. You're going to use a decision matrix. Don't worry too much about that now because you're submitting a completed decision matrix in milestone 2. But for additional resources on developing the decision matrix, we have some really good examples right here. And when we get to milestone 2, I will go more into depth on another video regarding those. Okay, let's get into the critical elements you need to address. You need to answer each one of these bullet points in regards to this project case scenario. So make sure that as you answer these questions, you are always thinking about the business owner and the business problems that you are trying to solve in relation to this designer clothing, shoes, and handbags business. It's kind of tempting to fall into kind of a general worldwide discussion of the particular technologies you're choosing, but you want to make sure you put that business analyst hat on and you think about your end user. An end user is how we describe the person who's going to be using the technology that you're suggesting. And in this case, it's the business owner of this designer clothing, shoes, and handbag store. So while one technology may work great for, say, an electronics company, it's not going to work the same way that it does for a designer clothing store. So when you discuss these two technologies, make sure that you're keeping that in mind. Answer these questions objectively, academically, logically. If you have a very strong opinion about something, make sure that it's benefiting the logical organization of the analysis and argument that you're making for and in support of this technology. You don't need to use a lot of I thinks and I maybe. You know, you be confident that you've learned what you need to learn, and um, in order to answer these questions, and that you'll continue learning so you'll be able to refresh and refine as you go along. Remember, this is a first draft, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just answer the questions and straight to the point, and read the question and make sure that the answer that you're providing makes sense in that context. So it asks you to briefly describe the two technologies from the list provided. The two technologies it refers to are in this final project case scenario, this list right down here. Select two of the following technologies. Make sure you pick two of those. You need to briefly describe, define them. This is where you want to reference or paraphrase the text and make sure that you provide proper APA citation for that. You don't have to go in a whole lot of depth. You're going to be researching those later, and those come in later milestones. So just a brief explanation of what the technologies are is perfect. Then you're going to get into the business requirements section. This is basically the requirements that you need to solve the stated problem. The objectives of undertaking the project to integrate new technology. What should the project accomplish? How does it support the goal of your business? So you're going to reach back to this project scenario. Again, look at what the business owner is looking for, what her goals are, and that's going to help you answer these questions. Same thing with competitors and technology. Return to this project scenario. Here are your competitors. Take a look through the two that you want to choose. Really research their site. Make sure you reference their website because you are using them in your paper. And just briefly describe what that company does. You're going to return to it later, so make sure it's a company that you think you can go through the entire project with, because you will be using them later again and going and drilling down into more depth. Also note here, it says include specific examples. Make sure you are specifically referring to that e-commerce website, what they're doing to support their technology. You may want to include a couple screenshots. That'd be fine too. Just make sure that you're referencing where you got them from. Um, and if you need help taking screenshots, make sure you let me know. There's a free program called Jing, Jing, that TechSmith puts out. It's a fantastic free screen grabber that if you need a link to, I'll post a link to it later down in this post. Okay, and then finally, you're going to refer to what you learned in your research on the companies above and explain one specific way in which one of the companies is benefiting from technology and the potential benefit to your business if you were to adopt the same approach. So again, you need to be very specific. What is that tech company doing with their technology and how would it benefit this particular designer clothing business? Okay, and lastly, you have this rubric down here. This is how we grade your papers and your milestones. I'm going to go step by step on each of these critical elements. Now, your APA formatting, and here I'm going to give you a really great tip, and it's really an amazing asset that's new here provides for you. Way up top here, you have this link to this final project template. It says it's recommended you use this template to ensure you do not miss any items you need to address. I would say you absolutely need to use this template. It's just a huge resource. So it's going to bring you to this document, and you're going to see that absolutely everything that you need to answer and provide in your project is here highlighted for you. I mean, it is just placed right in front of you, and all you have to do is go section by section. If you answer the questions in the highlighted areas of this, you are not going to miss anything. The just what you want to make sure you do is that you replace anything in the highlighted yellow with your own thoughts, and then you delete the yellow sections so that it's just your and the instructions are up here on top how to do that. Remove all the example content. Um, and here's a table of contents. It's going to say replace the heading with the technology selected from that project scenario. You don't actually replace it in the table of contents. You replace it down here in your technology choice a little bit further up. And then once you've replaced it in the heading where it says replace it, you actually come back up to this table of contents here, click it, and click Update Table. You can't edit in the table of contents itself. If you need any help editing Microsoft Word table of contents, just do a quick YouTube search. You'll find something to help you out. Or if you need, you can always reach out in the general discussion forum. And then another thing to remember is if you end up copying or pasting anything at all, chances are is that it's probably going to update the formatting on the paper. So even though it is an APA formatting right now, which is size 12 font, Times New Roman, double space, and 1-inch margins. Just double check that before you submit it, that's what this looks like. And remember, this is a template for the entire final project, so you only need to address the milestone 1 areas that are in your rubric right here. So if you have some yellow at the bottom, that's fine because you're going to be submitting those in milestone 2 and 3. But really, if you answer all those questions and you follow this rubric here, you're going to do just fine. So basically, you have 3 scores. You can get missing from draft, and if you follow that template, you're not going to get that. You're going to be able to answer every question and hit every point you need to. Significant errors or minimal or no errors. The primary difference in each of these critical elements between minimal, no errors, significant errors is just that in minimal no errors, you're being very logical and academic. You're supporting your claims with support and research and paraphrasing. Significant errors, your argument is unclear. It's just if you don't understand the content or something's not making sense, it's probably not going to come across clearly. So make sure that you clarify those with questions either in the general discussion forum or email or text or call me. And if you are writing an opinion piece, it's probably not going to be, it's going to contain inaccuracies or logical or cursory explanations. So just my motto in my everyday work is quantify everything. So make sure that you're doing that in your descriptions here and that you're providing rich and significant detail and that you're answering the question. So when you finish writing, go back, read the question again in the bullet and make sure that you are answering that specific question and you will do just fine. And again, remember, this is just a draft. So we're going to provide feedback to help you get where you need to get by your final project. And it's not supposed to be perfect. So just do your best to fit in, always aim for this top rubric here. And if you have any questions about what something specific in here means, definitely ask. And always be returning to this rubric and this project scenario. You should be checking, double checking, triple checking that your projects and milestones are addressing everything that this rubric asks you to address. And then lastly, articulation of response has to do with citations, grammar, spelling, syntax, organization. Use the tools that you have, your grammar check, your proofreader, your spell check. Make sure that you're using that library, Shapiro Library APA reference guide. And of course, use the Writing Center, guys. I mean, that's just a free resource out for you. They will proofread your paper for you before you even submit it. It's a free resource to students. It's just a really, really great asset that SNU provides for you. And at the very least, maybe join a couple of their webinars or watch some of their tutorials, because they have some really, really great suggestions for you to help you improve your writing. And remember that you're going to carry these writing skills throughout your entire undergraduate career, and your professional career. It's just extremely important to learn how to write academically and logically, so that you can, argue correctly and you can get your point across. And in a case like this, where we're trying to find technology for a business owner that we would be able to pitch and eventually make money off of the proposals that we're making. So if you have any other questions at all, make sure you leave them in the general discussion forum or send me a quick email or text. And other than that, happy writing, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with on this project.